About 50% alcohol.
Okay.
So it's just little sips. So we're going to start with Esparine Ancestral and Sierra Negra. These are both Ancestral, so clay pot distillation. This style of Mezcal, there's no mechanization in the process. It's naturally fermented in open air, so anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, depending on the season. These are both hand-crushed agaves. Hola, buenas noches. Clay pots. From 2 different regions in Oaxaca. So, like I said, they're both 49% alcohol. So the right one here is going to be the Ancestral Esparine, which takes between 6 to 12 years to mature before they're ready to harvest. And this is Ancestral Sierra Negra, which is a wild agave. It's harvested, wild harvested. So this one's cultivated. If you've had Mezcal before, you probably had an Esparine. This is the most common. 90% of Mezcals on the market are Esparine from Oaxaca and artisanal. So not clay pots. You can evaporate the alcohol and take a little whiff, and that's kind of what it smells like when they're making the Mezcal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the medicinal purposes of this one right here?
Well, all Mezcal really, it could be any Mezcal. Mezcal, because the plants are in the ground for so long, organic process. So these are wild harvested agaves with the exception of the cultivated Espadine. It's basically you're tasting that time that it's been in the ground, you're tasting the natural fermentation in the air, and so there's no chemicals added to the process. So it's just like a pure, clean spirit.
And this is pronounced Espadine?
Espadine.
Espadine. But all of them have specific herbs inside them.
No, there's no herbs. No, the ones that do have herbs added, so we can try one at the end, they're called curados.
Okay.
And so because alcohol is a solvent, it extracts the medicinal properties of whatever plant. And basically, it's going to be your palate adjusting to the alcohol. Okay. And then the second sip, your palate's going to open up. After about 3 sips, you're going to kind of get a really idea of what that mezcal is tasting like.
Okay.
So I'll give you this little tasting wheel. You can kind of use it to decipher some of the flavors that you're tasting. But I would suggest, little sip, coat your palate, take a breath. Little sip, coat your palate, take a breath. Kind of like mezcal yoga. We're going to be like, sip, breathe, sip, breathe, sip.
Right.
You need to taste the mezcal.
Definitely
appreciate these are small batch mezcals, right? So for the Sierra Negra, there was only 75 liters. For the Ancestral Esparine, there was only 150 liters. So they're both very small batches.
Okay.
These types of agaves, and actually the one right behind us there, that's the Espadine. See that big spiky one outside?
Oh, yeah.
Right here. So that's the Espadine. Okay. The Sierra Negra looks very similar to it. The way that we can tell the difference is when the agave starts to become more mature, the leaves the shape of the leaves are a little bit different. And the leaves start to kind of leaves, and this is the heart of the agave where all the sugars are. So to make mezcal, once the agave is mature, we cut off all the leaves and harvest the agave, cut it out of the ground, and then those sugars that are concentrated need to be cooked before they can ferment. So that smokiness and earthiness we're tasting is coming from cooking the agaves in underground pits with wood. So the cooking process takes anywhere from 3 to 7 days, depending on the size of the agaves. So underneath this pile of agave, there's some fire, and that will be covered and then let to sit and smoke for anywhere, depending on the size of the agave and the style of the mezcalero, anywhere from 3 to 7. This one is a little bit more, it's a little bit shorter and fatter. Okay. So this one's the Madre Quiche in the green glass. And then we have the blue glass, we're going to do quiche. So the Madre Quiche is a clay pot distillation, so ancestral. And the quiche is a copper pot distillation, so artisanal. The only difference between artisanal and ancestral is the type of still. So clay versus copper. Everything in these processes is done by hand. There's no mechanization. So it's hand crushed agaves or animal powered crushing with a tahona. So this one right here, the quiche the madre quiche is hand crushed. The quiche is crushed with a tahona. So the hand crushed, we saw these big mallets, and the tahona crushed, it's either a horse or a donkey that's used to like pull this like big stone wheel, and that crushes the agave after it's cooked.
Nice. Wow.
The Bixtate, this agave is one of the oldest types of agaves that takes the longest to mature. So this is in the ground, and before it can be ready to harvest is in the ground for 15 to 35 years. It's a really giant, large agave. So compared to all the other ones, you can see like the leaves are kind of really big, like flat leaves, and like the piña generally is a little bit of different shape. But this one is generally very earthy because of the amount of time it spends in the ground maturing. So 15 to 35 years. And this one is an ancestral, so clay pot distillation and hand crushed agaves. This one's really, the flavors, I think the chocolate goes really well. Why I added at the end is the chocolate will complement these like earthy flavors. And this one, like the madre quiche, it's the first few sips are pretty intense, but it will kind of like mellow out on the end. The second one we have is a blend, so it's called an ensemble. So as opposed to like blended wine or whiskey or rums, when they are doing these many distillations and then blending them all at the end, the ensembles for mezcal are generally they're taking the agaves, they're harvesting them at the same time, so cutting them, harvesting them, cooking them in the same oven, crushing them together, fermenting them together, then distilling them together. So it's really a marriage from the beginning part of the process. Usually for the blends, it's anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of agaves. This is the only family I've found doing a blend of 8. So this one has 4 large agaves and 4 small agaves. So on the final one is the most complex